I'm Sharyl Attkisson in Poland with U.S. troops less than 40 miles from the Russian border. The expanding war between Ukraine and Russia brings the potential battle line ever closer to Poland and NATO involvement. Do you expect that Russia knows what's going on today?
Absolutely.
We're on live fire drills with the troops, sending a loud and clear message to Russia. We're heading into the worst of the fall allergy season, and those who suffer are facing a confusing choice of options.
It was no different than taking a placebo for a stuffy nose.
This week, we take a look at what happened to those old sinus remedies that worked.
When we published a paper, we brought this to FDA's attention, and they ignored it.
And the answer is nothing to sneeze at.
In Kentucky, there's a fight over water.
I don't get to choose what's in my water.
For decades, fluoride has been added to public water systems with the intent to prevent tooth decay. And for decades, some have questioned the mandate.
Fluoride is a neurotoxin. We can repair the tooth. You can't repair brain.
This week, we question the science.
Welcome to Full Measure. I'm Sharyl Attkisson. The U.S. is one of 32 nations belonging to the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, or NATO. The alliance is 75 years old this year. Because of the Russia-Ukraine conflict, there's arguably never been more focus on its role of collective defense. And a political flashpoint, the huge cost. Today we travel to Poland, where the U.S. is taking a lead role near what could be a staging ground if Russia should do the unthinkable. These are live-fire NATO exercises in northeast Poland. It's rare that journalists are permitted to literally be in the midst to observe. This spot is chosen for its strategic importance, a mere 37 miles from Russia, and not far from a place often called NATO's weak spot. The Suwalki Gap in Poland. It's a 40-mile-long stretch of land between a Russian territory and Russian ally Belarus. If Russia were to attack from both sides, it could separate NATO countries Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania from Poland and the rest of Europe.
Kaliningrad, Russia, is about 60 kilometers to our north.
Lieutenant Colonel Patrick Maris from Birmingham, Alabama, is commander over this NATO training exercise. Why is this area important?
So the positioning between Belarus and Kaliningrad is about 160 kilometers wide. It is the only land bridge to Lithuania, Latvia, and Estonia that exists. So part of our role here is to deter any adversaries from impacting that terrain.
Does the fact of simply conducting exercises act as a deterrence?
Sure. It's interacting with multinational forces across NATO. It's partnering with Polish forces. Is all an effort to deter any adversaries.
Soldiers from the UK, Croatia, and Romania are taking part today, alongside U.S. soldiers. Juan Mujica, 22, is from Victoria, Texas.
I'm the gunner on my track.
And what does that involve?
Pretty much just controlling the gun on top and just shooting the targets, pressing the triggers.
28-year-old Staff Sergeant Broderick Perdue is from Omaha, Nebraska. What would you like people at home to know about something you do they may not know?
I would just like to say that being an armored crewman is probably one of the best jobs you can have in the Army. There's nothing beat being on an Abrams tank, maneuvering and shooting big bullets, like at least almost a mile out.
Do you expect that Russia knows what's going on today?
Absolutely.
How do they watch?
From all different means. I mean, open source collection for sure. Social media, anything that is advertised. I mean, from the NATO side, we message very well what our capabilities are and how frequently we are practicing them for that purpose.
Another message NATO is delivering to Russia today is that multiple nations are practicing cohesively and are ready, bridging language barriers and communication gaps. Colonel Alex Gizevskis oversees NATO battle groups in the region. He joined Lithuanian Fighters for Freedom in 1991 when he was 17 and took part in combat operations against the Soviets until they left Lithuania in 1993.
Do you think the Russian threat in some respects focused NATO in a different way that made it stronger or more powerful as a deterrent?
Yes, NATO is much stronger than it was earlier. I'm very happy what Americans actually bring their knowledge and we are able to share with all nations, all among us. This is the most important, frankly saying, the support, deterrence, and trust me, it's just people around, when they see the military uniforms, and Americans especially, they're very happy to greet them, to shake their hands.
The $175 billion tax dollars the U.S. has designated for Ukraine since Russia invaded in 2022 and the lopsided assets the U.S. has to back up NATO are political fodder. The U.S. spends close to $1 trillion on defense. That's almost double the other 31 NATO countries combined. And when it comes to NATO's annual budget, the U.S. and Germany cover 1/3 of the $4.2 billion. 30 other countries contribute much smaller amounts. At a campaign rally, Donald Trump recounted how, as president, he says he motivated more NATO nations to step up and pay their fair share using tough talk with the leader of one unspecified NATO country.
Well, sir, if we don't pay and we're attacked by Russia, will you protect us? I said, you didn't pay? You're delinquent? He said, yes, let's say that happened. No, I would not protect you. In fact, I would encourage them to do whatever the hell they want. You got to pay. You got to pay your bills.
Perhaps no country outside Ukraine counts on U.S. support more than Poland when it comes to the Russia conflict. Poland President Andrzej Duda told me he's worked successfully with Obama, Trump, and Biden.
2015 roku po raz pierwszy spotkałem pana prezydenta Baracka Obamę.
In the fall of 2015, I first met Barack Obama. The result of our cooperation was that during the NATO summit, a decision was made to expand the NATO presence on NATO's eastern flank. And then President Barack Obama gave the green light to dispatch 2,000 American soldiers to Poland. And so they've been present ever since on a rotation basis. When I had my cooperation with President Donald Trump, the American presence was enhanced in Poland. And then the presidency of Joe Biden came, and Joe Biden, when the Russians were attacking, were on the eve of launching their attack on Ukraine, dispatched here and deployed here top-notch American soldiers to be deployed in the vicinity of the Polish-Ukrainian border. So American politics, no matter who is at the helm, continues to function in a way that strengthens and solidifies American-Polish relations.
We know, or we've been told, that Russia hasn't made any moves threatening to go beyond Ukraine's borders, anything like that. But are there scenarios that we've worked out that if that were to happen, this would be or could be a key point?
Frankly saying, I cannot reveal the whole secrets and so on. We know what enemy potentially can do. So when I can tell on behalf of my division what we are ready actually not only to deter, but to defend every inch of the NATO.
To reiterate, NATO officials say they would see key signs well in advance if Russia were planning an assault or offensive outside of Ukraine, and they say Russia hasn't made any such threat since its invasion in 2022. When we come back, sinus sufferers finally do have something to sneeze at. Tens of millions of Americans suffer from nasal and sinus congestion,
and turn to medicine you can buy on store shelves without a prescription. But it turns out they may be a big waste of money because these are not your daddy's decongestants. The active ingredient has been switched out for one that by nearly every account doesn't work. Today, the inside story. The first thing you should know is that decongestants with the same brand name may contain two completely different active ingredients, and by nearly every account, one of them doesn't work.
It was no different than taking a placebo for a stuffy nose.
To help tell this story, we turn to Leslie Hendelis, a doctor of pharmacy and professor emeritus at the University of Florida. The two ingredients we're talking about are pseudoephedrine and phenylephrine. Most decongestants before 2006 contained pseudoephedrine, which works. But after 2006, most changed to phenylephrine, which doesn't work, according to experts. Hendelis's role in the scandal began more than 30 years ago after he did research for an article on decongestants.
And in that article, I commented that this phenylephrine was not an effective drug.
America's switch from the ingredient that worked to the one that doesn't was made around 2007 because the original products were being abused by meth users and drug dealers. So there was a point in time during which the ingredient that is widely agreed upon works well was being abused by people who make illegal meth or methamphetamines.
Correct. So that's why the Congress passed a law, the Combat Methamphetamine Epidemic Act, that requires pseudoephedrine to be behind the counter.
A version of the decongestants remained available on regular store shelves, but switched to the allegedly ineffective active ingredient. Most people probably didn't know about the switch, but may have noticed their tried and true cold medicine no longer worked.
After the law was passed and pharmacists had to move the pseudoephedrine behind the counter, the patients were buying the products that had phenylephrine in it and then complaining to the pharmacist that it didn't work.
The University of Florida's Drug Information Center started getting a relative flood of calls from pharmacists and doctors asking about the medicine. Hendelis and a colleague, Doctor of Pharmacy Randy Hatton, collaborated. Hatton got copies of the original studies the FDA used decades ago to approve phenylephrine.
And he analyzed the data, and his analysis showed that it wasn't effective, even the data that the FDA had.
The pharmacist duo decided something should be done about what they discovered.
And we published a paper. We brought this to FDA's attention, and they ignored it.
What year was that?
2006 or 7. When they didn't do anything, we filed a citizens petition. And in response to the citizens petition, they called their outside advisory committee to look at the data. This is phenylephrine, and this is pseudoephedrine.
The FDA committee recommended studies to see if maybe the decongestants just needed to up the dose of the ingredient that didn't seem to work.
One of the companies did actually do some studies at higher doses. And in a blinded study that looked at various doses, they found that even 4 times the maximum FDA recommended dose was no different than placebo.
Meantime, years passed and the FDA didn't act. Then in 2015, Hendelis and his partner wrote an editorial again questioning the effectiveness of phenylephrine. And they filed a second petition asking the FDA to take it off the market.
And FDA sat on that petition for 5 or 6 years before doing anything. And in 2023, they had put together an internal scientific committee within the FDA to look at all of this data. And that committee determined that the drug wasn't effective, and we were right. And so they then called another advisory committee meeting in September of 2023. And these outside advisors, with none of them had any conflict of interest, judged that the FDA was correct and we were correct, that it was not effective. And they still haven't done anything about it.
Hendlis says he personally contacted the FDA to find out why.
And I contacted the head of the non-prescription drug division, and she gave me ice in the winter. She said that they were looking into it, but they haven't acted. I suspect that there's a problem because it's in 261 products, and I think the lobbying group for the manufacturers of non-prescription drugs probably is pushed back on the FDA's determination that it wasn't effective.
The industry lobby group says phenylephrine is a safe and effective decongestant, and that the FDA advisory committee is at odds with the numerous clinical trials. For now, Hendlis says two things that do work for cold and allergy stuffiness are nose sprays with phenylephrine or steroids. And if you think your store shelf bought decongestant isn't working, it's not your imagination.
Hendlis says there are other common non-prescription products with the same MO, and that Congress should examine the broken FDA system that allowed them on the market and keeps them there. Coming up, there really is something in the drinking water, and it might not be safe. For almost 80 years, some American cities have been adding the chemical fluoride to the drinking water for healthy teeth. Since the start, some have claimed it's an unsafe practice, while others cried that's a conspiracy theory. Lisa Fletcher finds a growing number of communities are trying to get the fluoride out and are pointing to sound science.
From homeschooling to home-cooked meals, Kentucky mom Carrie Ashauer has a strong influence over what's going into her kids' minds and bodies. But despite her best efforts, there's something flowing into her home over which she has no control. Mandatory fluoride in the tap water.
I don't get to choose what's in my water. I have no control over that, especially since it's a state mandate that they have to put it in.
Kentucky is one of 13 states that require water districts to add fluoride. Across the U.S., about 73% of people served by community water systems have fluoridated water.
It's been linked to ADHD, IQ, development. Unless you install a whole house filter, there's no way to get it out.
Ashauer is supporting a bill that would allow individual water districts in Kentucky to decide whether or not to fluoridate.
How important is it for you to have a voice in what your kids are consuming?
If we can't advocate for our kids, then why are we here?
Since 1951, Kentucky, like many states around that time, started requiring fluoride to be added to all tap water. Fluoride was a generally unwanted byproduct of aluminum, fertilizer, and iron ore manufacturing, until the industry promoted the idea of adding it to water supplies. Today, selling fluoride used in water is a $1.2 billion a year global business, and one that has rarely been without controversy starting in the 1950s, with concerns ranging from fluoride being a communist plot to undermine public health to it being a form of mandatory medication. Now, there is a modern and growing body of research suggesting that fluoride may be linked to health issues like bone fractures, joint problems, and neurological issues, especially in children.
Fluoride is a neurotoxin. In a child, that is extremely critical to consider because the brain is being developed. Let's take a look down here.
Dr. Jack Call is a dentist in Louisville, Kentucky, and part of a group of more than 800 dentists, physicians, and researchers questioning the safety of fluoride in the water.
Why take a chance with that? We can repair the tooth. You can't repair brain.
Call says the 50-plus-year-old science used to support fluoridating water is out of step with the latest research.
Everybody can find science to fit their narrative.
Yes.
What makes the science behind fluoride being dangerous to you more reliable and more trustworthy?
These recent studies in the last 7 or 8 years. They've been funded by the National Institutes of Health. Typically, studies that are funded that way are done at very high quality research facilities and have been thoroughly vetted just to approve the funding before the actual research has started. So that adds a level of confidence.
But not for everyone.
I think when you get right down to it, the facts are on the side of the fluoridation.
Dr. Stephen Robertson is the executive director of the Kentucky Dental Association.
The science backs the effects that the fluoridation is having and supports that this is one of the top 10 public health initiatives that we've had in America.
How do you explain Kentucky being in the bottom 8 states for oral health and tooth decay, yet being the #1 fluoridated state in America?
As we've seen an increase in processed foods and changes in the diet and the increase in sugar intake and the high increase in soda with the acidic drinks and the high sugar content, there's going to be an increase in decay.
There are doctors and researchers that we've spoke to who have said when they try to have a conversation about the facts of fluoridation, there's a deflection to sugar or to diet rather than going back and forth about the risks and rewards of fluoridation.
Well, I think that's because the science is strongly on our side. The fluoride is doing what it can to help. It has to be the diet and the sugar, and that's why people keep coming back to that.
In the last 6 months, communities in at least a dozen states have voted to keep fluoride out of their tap water. Since 2010, it's been removed from more than 150 towns or counties. Just this week, a California court ruled in support of a ban to adding fluoride to drinking water across the country. The court found evidence that fluoride poses an unreasonable risk to health, particularly for children. The Environmental Protection Agency could challenge that ruling, which could send the case to the Supreme Court. Lawmakers in some states aren't waiting for the courts.
It's time to update this law. Let's take this out.
Republican Kentucky state lawmaker William Lawrence is co-sponsoring the bipartisan bill that would take fluoridation out of the hands of state government and give local water districts control.
If we could get this bill passed, you, the citizen, could go to your water district and say, hey, we want to stop this. We want this out of our water. And you get enough people behind it, majority rules.
And for moms like Carrie Ashour, she's counting on it.
As a mom, as a voting citizen, I will take that into account when I go to the polls.
For Full Measure, I'm Lisa Fletcher in Barry, Kentucky.
After a break, what's ahead next week on Full Measure? Coming up next week on Full Measure, we continue our reporting on the cutting-edge research into COVID and COVID vaccine injuries.
Immunologically, the vaccine makes your immune system in many ways different than it would be if you just had COVID.
New insights into emerging disorders now said to impact millions next week on Full Measure. Until next time, we'll be searching for more stories that hold powers accountable. Thanks for watching.